Hey, Goat Knucklers. Welcome to another episode of Goat Knuckle Talk with Flo. I am Flo. And before I introduce you to my co host, I'm going to remind you on the YouTube channel, please subscribe. Please click that notification bell, like the video, and leave a comment. So let me go ahead and introduce you to my co host, class of 83, Lisa Nolan Hafner.
Hi, Flo.
Hey, so it's rainy over here, but up in DFW.
Oh gosh, it's very hot,
Oh,
super hot, hot and humid. I wish it was raining to kind of break the heat.
well, cool. So who are these cool
Oh,
cats we have here
I've been so
tonight?
excited about the show. Well, first of all, I want to just tell our viewers out there that our this is what our 56th show or something like that.
50s, yeah.
And tonight's show is proudly sponsored by American Overhead Doors, and they've been in business for 38 years. And they provide all sorts of services, sell service installation of high quality Amar doors and openers in Plainview, and they do a lot of commercial work as well. And if you have any questions for our sponsors, reach out to Geraldine Cock Holt at 806-296-7749. And when we post this video, we'll post their information as well. Anyway, without
Yeah.
further
And
ado,
go ahead.
I've been
Sorry.
super excited about the show because three of my favorite people from high school are here. And please welcome Lisa Kirsch, Charles C. Dixon, and Leslie Sizemore Carlisle. And I'll start with Charles C. Where are you living, and what high school did you graduate from, and when?
I live in Plainview, Texas, and graduated from Brownfield High School 100 years ago. So,
Leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that. Leslie?
I live between Crest and Plainview. I graduated from Crest High School in 1979.
Okay. And Lisa?
Okay, I live in Plainview and I graduated from Plainview High School, so I had similar experience to you and Flo. And in fact, my husband also graduated from Plainview High School, so our sons even went to the same elementary that their dad did. So we have been Plainview through and through. I have 1 year outside of Plainview in teaching, and that was my first year in Lockney.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Wow. Well, we got OGs of home ec, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, ladies, thank you for coming on our show. Lisa, let's go ahead and get the questioning started. So go.
Well, I want to. We're going to start at the beginning, like your high school years. What kind of a student were you? And I'll start with Lisa.
Okay, well, as far as student, I liked school. Always liked school. I worked at it. I made good grades, but I really liked the high school experience. I was in a lot of different things and joined in. Had a really good time throughout high school, and I remember it fondly. All of the activities, plus friends, plus just being in Plainview and doing a lot. When I think back about the things that I really liked, I'm not necessarily thinking about academics, but one of my favorite things were all of the home ec classes that I took. And this, you may lead into this later, but I'll go ahead and just mention it because it was a big part of influencing my decisions. That you may remember, y'all may remember this, the club or organization, Future Homemakers of America, and now it's called FCCLA. That went along with the classes, and I was a member of that. And when I was a sophomore, I became the area president of that organization. And so that led me to my experiences, and that led to a scholarship to a state college. And so you could go to any state college that you chose that offered that major. And you did have to major in home ec, but that had been my intent anyway, because I really liked that subject matter. So, a good experience in high school led to my foundation in college and my career, I guess.
That's wonderful. You know, home ec was one of my favorite classes starting in 7th grade. And I don't remember who my teacher was back then, but I was sharing with a client, my last client today, that, you know, one of the things I took away from home ec is etiquette and manners and sending thank you notes, which I still do. I send handwritten thank you notes when people do anything, and no one does that anymore these days. It's a lost art. And
Yes.
because I still do it, I mean, that's an influence that came out of Plainview. I get so many comments from people that are like, oh my gosh, you actually took the time to handwrite a note on stationery and mail it like snail mail. I'm like, everyone should still do that. Where are you from? From Plainview, Texas. And my comment teacher taught me that.
So
So
do you cursive write for people our age and over?
yes, I cursive write. I have great penmanship. It's something that I am really proud of. And I think when you send a handwritten note, it's a gesture of not only proper etiquette, but it's a gesture of thoughtfulness that you took the time to acknowledge someone's kindness or a gift or gesture, or whatever. And it goes a long way in that recognition and connection to somebody that you took your time, even if it's a hand scribbled note that just says, thanks so much for coming to my party, or thanks for this sweet and thoughtful gift. You know, it doesn't have to be big, but it goes a long way in civility, and it's beyond etiquette. I just think it's just real important, and it's not taught to kids. They don't do it. People don't.
No, they
Adults don't
don't.
do it.
No.
Anyway, Leslie, how about you? What kind of a student were you?
I was a fairly good student. I made good grades. I liked school. High school was my favorite as well. Loved the home economics classes. I was social, so I might or might not have got called down for talking maybe once or twice. But overall, I felt like I was a good student, you know, and loved high school.
So how far did you live from Plainview? I mean, were you just inside the school district for Crest, or you
Yes.
said you lived between Plainview and Crest?
Well, I do now. When
Oh,
growing up, I lived just right outside of Crest. So, yes, I was definitely in the Crest School District and went all of my years there. And then, but my husband graduated from Plainview and met him in high school, and that was history. And so I had a lot of connections with Plainview as well as Crest. So I feel like when people ask me where I'm from, I say I'm from Crest and Plainview. So I love both of them.
cool. Well, Lisa, didn't you want to ask her a question
Yes.
about it?
So is I forgot her husband's name, Diana Sizemore. Is that your
That's
relative?
my sister-in-law, Diana Hayes.
Okay.
She's married to my oldest brother.
Okay,
But
that's what I thought.
yes, my husband is Steve Carlisle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I told Flo, I said, I think Diana's her sister-in-law.
Yes. Yeah.
I just remember from living there that almost all the Sizemores were related to each other.
We are pretty much.
Yes,
Yes.
I grew up in Edmondson, and there were some Sizemores in Edmondson.
Oh, yeah. They're
Yeah.
all around Health Center, Edmondson, Crest, View.
Okay, well, I was right.
Yes, you were.
Charlesy, how about you?
I loved high school. Real involved, made good grades. Now, but the weird thing was I only took one home ec class. It's home and family living. My senior year is the only one I was in 4-H, and so I never took a home ec class at all till that last semester. So, but I loved it and majored in it because I thought I was going to work with the extension service. I was going to be a county agent. Wasn't thinking about teaching home ec necessarily.
Oh, wow. Do y'all know this is an offshoot of what we're talking about? Do they even offer home ec as a major anymore? Do y'all know? They
Yes.
do?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not, the title is different, but it is. But
Okay.
you know, Lisa, what I notice, a lot of people they will major in some career technology class, and to tell you the truth, most that's a job that I do right now, is coach interns who are not certified, but they have college degrees. Over half of the people now don't even go through student teaching like all of us did. Leslie, Charlesy, and I, we all went to tech. We all student taught, went through the traditional channel. But most people now, they start work, and they can actually earn money, and they can be paid while they're working. So most of them are doing that now. And so I don't see a lot of real traditional majors. There are a lot of different things that they do. So, but that is still an actual major.
Okay. I don't think I even knew that that was a major when we were in school.
Mhm.
I probably would have majored in that and, and gone a different direction.
So, Chelsea, okay, were you like in band or,
I was always in
uh,
student councils, or the class officer.
okay.
I was a band and a twirler my freshman year, but then I decided band was not for me. So
What did you play? What instrument did you play?
flute.
Woo!
Yeah,
Wow.
junior high and my freshman year in high school. And then
And so why'd you quit?
I'm like, I
Just
guess I
quit.
have no musical ability whatsoever. I don't
What about twirling?
I love that too, but I
But
did
you didn't want to pursue it all the way through high school?
no. Probably like too clumsy, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. What about you, Leslie? Were you in extra activities or?
Yes, I was in athletics. I was a cheerleader. On the side, I taught dance lessons as a little part-time job. I was involved in FHA, FCCLA now, and all of those classes. And I'm trying to think, drama, theater. I loved all of them. It's, in a small school, you can do a lot of things. So I did a lot of things.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Lisa?
Tell you, Plainview was different because sports didn't share well all the time, and they really kind of put you in one sport, mainly for focus. And so, but I did go to tennis camp every summer, and I played tennis all 4 years. I played tennis all throughout high school, and I also was on the rodeo. I was in the rodeo club and rode horses, and I ultimately gave up tennis at the end because I was more interested in the riding horses, etc., and that experience. So I did that. Those were I guess two of my main focuses. But I was in a lot of different clubs. If anything had a club, I was pretty much in it. But there was a lot to offer, and I feel like that really enriched the experience of kids, throughout high school. So anyway, those were kind of my main focus activities.
Is that where you met your husband? Because I've seen him wearing the cowboy
No,
hats.
let's see. You know what? Actually, he was a cowboy, and still is. And we have two little ones now too that are grown as well. But I met him through a friend of mine. Her husband now was a good friend of his, and actually, he reminds me. He said, the first time I ever saw you was at a basketball game. So all the students were there at a basketball game. So that's really how we met. I When I was a sophomore in high school.
How fun.
Wow.
So
High school
when y'all
sweetheart.
when y'all were in high school, do y'all know when Title IX was passed?
I would say in the 70s or 80s.
No, I'm
I saw something today, and I'm not sure if it was specific to Title IX, but it said 1973, and it didn't specify Title IX, but it probably was referencing it. 1973 is when it became illegal to discriminate on basis of sex. So right there, while that would have been my junior or senior year of high school.
Okay. I knew it was the 70s, but I wasn't sure the exact date. So I didn't know
Mhm.
when y'all were in high school, Title IX had already been passed. Because I know that made a big difference in girls' sports.
Yes,
After it was, I mean, girls had more options once it got passed.
yes. But
Mhm.
you know, Plainview did not have girls basketball. The big schools, like 5A schools, did not have girls basketball when I was in high school. The small schools did, and they had it a long time before that. I can't tell you why, but I know when my sister went to high school, she played basketball. But so right in that span, soon after I graduated, I think they started offering basketball.
Wow, it's surprisingly because you had the Flying Queens back in the 60s to
I know
70s,
it.
I
or maybe the
know.
Right.
50s. That's really shocking. Wow.
It is. It is to me too, to think about that.
I'm going to have to Google when was the first year PHS had basketball.
Right. My sister graduated in 80, and I think it may have started when she was a freshman, because I think as a freshman she played. So I
Wow.
know anyway, so it's soon after I graduated.
Yeah, so like
But
mid 70s
Mhm.
probably.
Right,
Because
right.
when your sister was a senior, we were sophomores, I think,
No, a
Hmm.
freshman.
or freshmen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
She graduated in 80. So, yeah. So, ladies, tech. You guys, all three of them went to tech. And of course, Liz's email is Reckham. uh, did you guys see each other? Well, no, some of you guys are a little at different ages, but I guess never crossed paths. When,
No, I was there at a different time. I'm not sure about Chelsea when she was there. When were you there, Chelsea?
I graduated from high school in 75. I
Okay.
got my
so you and
bachelor's
Lisa could have
there.
been there.
Yeah, you and Lisa could have been there at the
We
same time.
were. Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
So,
started there in 79. So fall.
Right.
so how
But
was
we all
the
became friends
experience?
teaching.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the teaching experience was the first really close. We all started close to the same time, and I think had lots in common and common events that we experienced. So anyway, great friendships came out of that time, as you could tell by looking at some of the various ones. You know, when we started though, I was trying to think, and Charles C. might remember, we had about 6 home ec teachers when I started. There were a lot, and it's gotten smaller and smaller, but there were 6, and
Mhm.
everybody had full classes. We had lots of kids.
I think there were 5 when I started, and then it dwindled some. But yeah, there was a lot, and a lot of kids in our classes. It was
Yes, yes.
big class.
Mm.
So
And you mentioned to me, Lisa, that Mrs. Berry taught you.
Okay, something that Leslie said. I always chuckle about this. She taught me, and she was a great mentor. I had her when I was a freshman. In fact, her name, she wasn't married to Joe yet. Her name was Miss Owens. And then she got married soon after that. But Leslie talked about she may have gotten in trouble for talking. I used to, when I was principal, I'd walk into Margaret Berry's classes, and a lot of times, and just talk to her. And I told the kids, I said, do y'all know this lady, when I was in high school, gave me detention hall for talking? And they loved it. They thought that was hilarious. And it's a true story, because that did happen. That it didn't happen often, but I mean, it did happen once. So, but yes, Miss she definitely was one reason that I went the route that I did and participated in the FHA. And it would not have been probably my junior high experience, because I remember in that class we had to make something like lime jello with um, bell peppers and cauliflower in it, and she expected us to eat it and all that. I mean, it wasn't everything. That was mainly food based in that one, which I enjoyed, but not at that particular time. So anyway, but yes, I did have Margaret.
That's awesome. So going back to high school, what was your favorite subject, Charlesy?
I liked everything. I was a good student, I liked everything except math. And that was never been my strong suit. So
Same. How about you, Leslie?
Definitely home economics. I think I took just practically every class they offered. I loved all of them, and athletics, and then I loved drama, which we called it drama, but theater. Those were probably my three favorites.
What did you participate in sports?
I played basketball and I ran track.
What'd you run?
I ran, well, all kinds of things from seventh grade on, but I ran the 100 and the 200, ran the 400, ran the 800, ran relays. I was just kind of ran whatever they decided I needed to run. But
Dang, you were
yeah,
fast.
I just didn't like running the mile. I did not want to run the mile. Yourself used to running sprints is not easy. So yeah, I ran a little bit of everything.
Cool.
Yep.
Lisa,
Lisa?
what was your favorite subject or subjects?
Mine were also home ec. I like that, and a lot of times it was teacher specific. It might have been. I had some really good English teachers that I enjoyed. I occasionally had like a social studies, or I'd always really liked science too. And that in fact became a minor for me. And I don't care who was teaching math, I still wouldn't have liked it. I was the same. I was like Chelsea. That was not necessarily my favorite thing at all. But that anyway, that it was kind of those were the subjects that I liked, and a lot of times it did depend on maybe the teacher and the rapport they had. I know in junior high, I had a theater teacher I liked really well, and I was the lead in their play in eighth grade, but I never took it in high school. I guess it kind of fizzled after that. I didn't participate beyond eighth grade.
Do you remember the play?
Cheaper by the dozen.
Oh wow,
Uh-huh.
the kids?
Yeah, they have like a dozen kids, and I was
Yeah.
the yes.
Oh,
So,
wow.
That's Steve Martin, right?
yes, he did play that in the movie. Yeah, he
Right.
did.
Wow.
That's
So,
Leslie, what
funny.
plays were you in?
Um, I cannot recall a name of it. I know I did one act plays, and then we also at Crest we did like a junior play and a senior play for a fundraiser because we went on a senior trip for 10 days, went all around the United States on a Greyhound bus. So we
Oh wow.
raised money from our freshman year through our senior year. So we did those two plays. I know one of them was about hillbillies, but pretty much everybody in my class had some kind of part in the plays and stuff. It was a lot of fun.
So, did you mention? I'm sorry. What were you raising money for? Do you
Uh,
remember?
the senior trip.
Trip. That's right. That's right. Okay. And what was the trip? I'm sorry.
We started out, trying to think where we went first, but we went to the Grand Canyon. We went to California. We went through Las Vegas, which is crazy with a bunch of seniors in high school. But anyway, we did that. And then let's see, California, we went to Universal Studios, all kinds of things. It was really fun, a lot of fun. We had to raise a lot of money to pay for everybody's way. So we started our freshman year and we worked hard for that, but it was neat. It's really cool.
Wow, I
Nice.
wish we had done that. Ladies, I find it very humorous that nobody on this panel likes math, including myself. And yet, if you think about all that's involved in home economics, whether you're cooking or sewing, math is critical.
That's true.
Balancing
That's
a checkbook. You know,
yes.
you need math for all things home economics, right?
Well,
Exactly.
Lisa, that reminds me of a story. I have a good friend, and her daughter several years back was in junior high, and there was a beloved teacher at this school, and she was phenomenal teaching math. And this friend of mine said, my daughter's never really gotten it. She said, but she this year's picking it up. And she said, I told the teacher, I just was so glad, and what a good teacher that she was. And she said, Lisa, she said she owes it all to you. I said, she doesn't even remember what I taught. I said, I didn't teach math. And she said, I know. She said, and she knows. But she said the first time, that it ever made sense to her was in your class. And I thought back, and it was consumer education. And that was like knowing math and applying it. And to me, I had to have it make sense like that. And so I thought, well, that's great. I'm glad it clicked with somebody, because I didn't really like math per se, but the application is so necessary, like you said. So I was so glad to hear that. I thought, well, good. I'm glad I taught somebody something about math.
I know, isn't it interesting? I mean, yeah, I love to cook, and you really need it. Now I'm
Yes.
learning, I'm having to do all this conversion study because I'm moving abroad next year or the year after. My husband and I are moving to Europe, and
Where?
we're moving to Spain.
Okay.
Oh.
Our daughter's living in Germany right now.
Oh, how exciting. Yeah, well, my mother's Catalan and my dad was French, and so going to Southern Europe is like going home for me. But everything is different. I mean, even the temperature, like I can't expect people to say, a quart versus a liter, or 67 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm like, oh gosh, I need to go back and learn some of this.
Oh, you're going to be in the metric system there.
I know, but it's not something we learn here, which is kind of silly because we're the only country.
Right.
Right. We're a little behind anyway. So I'm passing the.
Oh, okay. So ladies, when you were hired at Plainview, did you guys have to go to, I assume, hiring process? I'll start with you, Chelsea. Did you had to interview, and you're laughing? That's why I'm picking on you. So can you share your experience?
Mr. Veach had been principal, and Dr. Harrison, the superintendent, had interviewed me, and they hired me. No, they didn't. He interviewed me, and Mr. Veach became superintendent, and he called me because we want to offer you a job. And I said, oh. He goes, what? I said, I've already accepted a job in Lockney. He goes, well, go to Lockney, tear the contract up, come up here and sign a contract. I said, okay. So I went to Lockney, got out of that contract, came back to the administration building. Mr. Veach, the new superintendent, met me on the front porch, and he goes, oh, we've changed our mind. Joking with me, but I was like, oh my gosh. So anyway, I did get hired. So
Terrible joke.
what?
I said, that's a terrible joke.
No. The funniest one about Mr. Veach, and y'all's the boys of 76.
Yes.
Jerry Sizemore was talking about Mr. Veach not recognizing him as adult, his wife and kids with him, and like he didn't know him, turned him around, looked at his, we're getting him so many licks. He goes, oh, then he recognized him. But yeah, that was still the funniest thing I ever heard.
I'm glad you mentioned Jerry. I forgot about it. So is that like an uncle, Jerry, the football player for the Eagles?
He's my cousin. Let's see, he would be my dad's first cousin, so he'd be my third cousin, but we grew up around each other all the time. I know all those boys, Ricky and Jerry and Chris, and yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, we're related.
Did you guys didn't become Eagles fans, did y'all? Or did you stay Cowboys?
No, I was a Jerry fan, but I was a Cowboys fan.
Yeah. Did you guys were able to go to the football games?
I watched him play when he played at UT.
Okay.
We went to Austin and watched him play. So
okay,
one time.
Well, since we're talking to you, what about your interview experience?
Well, mine's a little bit different. So I did a long-term sub job for Charles C. She was out on maternity leave, had her baby, and then she came back and finished the semester. And then they called me Christmas break and said, "Can you come in for an interview?" And I was like, "Okay," and I had about 5 days to decide. So I went in and interviewed with Mr. Veach, and Mr. Veach was a character. And so I interviewed with him, and then he sent me over to interview with Mr. George, Jerry Don George, and interviewed with him. And I kind of thought, well, I won't know for a few days. But before I left his office, he's like, "If you want it, you got it." So I said, "Perfect. Okay."
I went in and talked to Mr. George when I was thinking about quitting in the middle of the year. And I said, if I quit in the middle of the year, can I ever come back? He goes, "You can come back anytime there's an opening." So that's your opening to be there.
So I stuck around 33 years with.
Oh, my word. Love it.
Yeah.
Lisa?
So, well, if y'all remember that who had a role in ours was, or at least my experience was a vocational director. And because they actually supervised the career technology at the time, but my experience was a little bit different. I taught in Lockney my first year, and they had a home ec teacher that lived in Lockney and taught in Plainview. And I lived west of Plainview and taught in Lockney. And so we did that for a year. And actually, she and I talked because she was going to go back to Lockney, and that ended up not happening. So I got that job. And so the next year, after both of us, we met on the highway every day about halfway. She was going to Plainview, I was going to Lockney. We got together somehow, and she said, she was, I don't know, that her family lived in Lockney. And she said, "I want to go back to Lockney." I said, "Well, I for sure want to go to Plainview." And so we talked about it, made a deal, and then we called the school and told them we wanted to trade jobs. And that was fine with everybody. She was a great teacher too. So it was amicable for everyone. And that was and I was really thankful for that small school experience that I had, because I had been at Plainview every year. And so it's good, it's good to see a different side of things. So mine was a little bit different, but that was how we did. We just made an arrangement with ourselves and they agreed with it. So that was good.
That's pretty cool.
Wow, that is very cool. I mean, only in small town America could something like that happen. I mean,
Truly.
most school districts have so many formalities that you have to go through.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
my sister is the superintendent for Plano,
Oh, wow.
which is a huge school district, and the
Yes.
hiring is, yeah, I hear all sorts of stories, and that could never fly in a school
No.
district like that. Hey, let's
No.
swap jobs. Oh my gosh.
So, Lisa, your first day teaching, if you can remember,
Well, I'm
how
going to
did
go back. Yeah, I thought actually, my first day in Lockney, I can't remember that real well. I do remember well my first day at Plainview, because I was kind of nervous because, like y'all said, my sister was a senior, and all of her friends were there that I'd known, all their life. And of course, there were a lot of kids I didn't know, but all of my classes were juniors and seniors, so that's all I taught. And I can remember I had her in a class, the very first of the year. And um anyway, so and that made me kind of nervous, but anyway, it was fine. It was fun. In fact, we enjoyed it. But I can't remember specifics of the first day. I just remember having nerves about that. I do remember the first test I gave. Paige, she was the only one that made an A on that test. So I had like 35 kids in that class, and it was a consumer ed class. And so I wrote something like 85 or 88 on the test, but I wrote the correct grade in the grade book. I wasn't about to hand back her test with a higher grade than anybody had. But I guess maybe she studied and nobody else did. But it was a fun experience and I liked it. And I just felt a lot of support from co-teachers. So that everybody, we had a really good group to work with. So I guess those were the highlights of my first day.
Oh, cool. Charles, yeah, I mean, I mean the first day. Let's see your first day in Plainview. We don't care about the other schools.
That's the only school I ever taught in was Plainview. Only thing I
Yeah.
ever taught.
So there you go.
Again, Lisa, we're all 22, 21 or 22 years old, and we're teaching 17 and 18-year-old kids. So I wanted to look grown up. And so I had my hair down to my waist. I cut my hair up, cut it all off. And so I'd be grown up looking. So anyway, so started teaching school in Plainview.
Were you
Okay.
nervous?
Oh, I'm sure I was, yeah. I did my student teaching in Tahoka and loved it. So you had that background experience, but no, I'm sure I was very nervous, but
Me
I
too.
always loved it.
Me too. I did mine in Tahoe.
You cut out what?
I said I did my student teaching in Tahoka as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Who was your supervising teacher?
Let's see. I had Patty Rambo and I can't think of Carolyn Virgin.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Were there when I was there, and I lived in Tahoka too. We had got, and I lived in Tahoka, and so they got me a job there. So that was perfect.
Cool.
You know, I
Only
remember
thing I
in
was
high
gonna,
school. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, I mean I remember how young y'all were. I definitely remember that. But I think from a student perspective, I felt that your youth was a benefit to us because you weren't that far removed from our age and could understand what we were going through because you were not that far ahead of us in age. And so you were relatable. You know, I think students trusted you. We could come to you. We felt comfortable with you. You made us feel safe. You didn't act like a stodgy, old fashioned teacher. And I just had that recollection and talking to other friends, guys and girls, like y'all were the cool teachers when we were in high school.
When when our daughter was probably in junior high, she came home and goes, you're so old. You're so old, Mom. You taught all my friends' parents. Well, sure. My way to have kids and other people were having kids and our kids were all the same age. So
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
I just remember one day after I had started teaching and got there early one morning and came around a corner and was going to the teacher's lounge, and one of the teachers was like, "Young lady, you need to come here right now." And I just kind of kept walking, and she said, "I said right now, young lady." And I turned around and I walked back there, and she said, "You need a hall pass." And I said, "I'm a teacher." And she said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know you were a teacher." So yeah, we were young when we started for sure. Got confused sometimes as students.
I had a band director that did that, and it wasn't. It was OT Ryan was there at the time. It wasn't OT. I'd known him a long time, but we were going to a pep rally, and one of the band directors did that. He pointed like, "Sit down," and I was standing where I was assigned. But that is a different phenomenon because we were when you're teaching high school, it's totally different than if you're teaching pre-K or elementary school because you are close in age to your students. And my brother told me not too long ago, he said, "Lisa, you need to quit working when all of your former students are on Medicare." And I said, I know. But I said, I'm going to keep after it, I guess. But it was funny. But I do realize, I'm glad to hear Lisa's perspective on that, because I always thought, well, they think we're old. So I don't know, but it was fun. I think that was one thing I liked a lot about it, though, was being close in age.
Yeah, for
Me-
sure. I mean, we could relate to y'all. Y'all could relate to us. I want to know, because you were so young, did any guys ever flirt with you?
I got it. I got to go. I'm gonna leave during this question. I'm kidding. I'm gonna say this. Was it seventh grade or eighth grade? We had a teacher named Mrs. Wilson. I had the biggest crush on her, and the guys challenged me, dared me, go to our house. So, do. He's like, Michael. I'm like, hi, Mrs. Wilson. May I help you? No, I gotta go. So, but yeah, I had a crush on a seventh or eighth grade teacher, Mrs. Wilson. I'll find her picture. But you guys go ahead and talk.
Surely,
Leslie,
surely
any?
somebody flirted with y'all.
Well, you don't have to mention names.
Well, yes. I just remember one day, one of the boys raised his hand and asked me if I would ever consider dating a younger man. You'll just have to talk to Mr. Carlisle about that.
What's it? What's the word I'm looking for, Lisa Nolan? Were you flattered, or was it like,
Oh, I guess the main thing, I'm like, okay, don't put me in a class like I'm a student like you. You know what I'm saying? Just like, Charles Lee was saying, you wanted to go in and have the respect from your students. But I mean, I guess in a weird kind of way, maybe a little, flattered, but you're just like, you feel like you're so much older than them because I was married and I had a little one and all that. So, but yeah, part of the things. I know Lisa,
Lisa?
I know they were flirting with her. They like Lisa Kirsch.
Well, in Plainview, and that, Leslie, that what you said is right. In Plainview, by the time I was there, I had gotten married. I had just gotten married. In Lockney, I wasn't married. And when we student taught, I wasn't married. And so, uh, Michael or Lisa, I can't remember it being a big deal. I think we would just squelch it pretty quick and move on, and not. I don't remember ever having an issue or a problem. It was just that. But yeah, that it is a factor when you're close in age. That's true.
Yes. Well, I am not going to share the comments I heard in the hallways, but there was a lot of flattery in the hallways about y'all. So that I do know for a fact.
Charles C. Now, is Don around?
Yeah, he's
Tell him to
sitting
go
over
to the
here.
next room.
He's laughing. He's listening and laughing.
Charles, say one of the things I would think that more people would flirt with you because you had such a vivacious personality that could come across as not intentionally flirtatious, but that vivaciousness could be perceived as flirtatious. You were just a lively person. I loved your class. You were like my favorite teacher.
You made my day, girl. You made my day. But no, I don't
loved
think you've
when
ever
you
flirted with
clapped.
me.
I loved hearing you talk, and I loved how fast you talk. I'm like, wow, somebody talks faster than me.
That's why I didn't want to do this. How fast I talk.
Oh, come on. No, that's awesome. So when y'all were teaching, so I guess Leslie, you were the last one to come into the group, right?
Yes.
Did y'all just bond immediately? I mean, y'all were closer in age than a lot of your other peers.
I felt like, yes. Lisa was my mentor and she was amazing. And Margaret Berry was there, Mary Ruth Stoneham, Marsha Parr. I mean, there were so many of us, but I felt like we had so much in common. And so therefore we had a lot to talk about, and I felt like we did bond. And I think too, a lot of our subject matter and what we teach, and just kind of that whole big picture is about relationships. So I felt like, yeah, we meshed immediately. I felt like.
Totally agree. Yeah. The same interests, and when you're going through, when you're teaching, there are just some things that some people would not understand unless they had been in the situation. And so it helps, and I really felt like I just have always been so fortunate in working with such great people, particularly in that department. We just had it doesn't matter if we ever get together and haven't seen each other in 5 years, we could start just like it was yesterday. So yeah, it's a kind of a unique relationship.
That's wonderful. Do you feel like during your teaching years at PHS that you had a lot of support from the administration, from the principals to superintendents? I mean, like, was it a supportive system? Because that's a part of, we don't see that as students, your relationship with your, the people that are above you, who you work for. Anybody can answer that. Charlesy?
No, I guess they're very supportive. I never felt like they weren't. So I said, Lisa, you're right. We had Mr. Quinn be a good vocational director, which that was nice.
Yes.
Okay, so your department had a department head.
We had a vocational director. I don't remember if we had a department head at that time, but really a lot of their job was money. I mean, because it's a federal program, they did things, and I'll say this too, because I think it was an important part of what we did, and I think it made a difference. We did, and I can't remember how much we were doing when Leslie got there, but we made home visits. And so I went to kids' houses all the time. I think
Every
it was
day.
one of the best things we ever had. But what I'm going to say about the support, because I was there for, until Mr. Georgia was gone too. He was supportive, but I don't think none of us were somebody that needed a lot of support. We did our job. We taught our classes. We didn't have discipline problems. We didn't need somebody. At that time, principals did not do instructional coaching. They were building managers. They managed people. They managed budgets. Like they said, they got a board, and that was at the time when they could give SWATs or whatever, but their job wasn't instructional. And to me, the job of that vocational director had to do with money and meetings. And if y'all remember, like Charles, you remember Amadora Hale? I mean, she was another level of support, because I had a Texas Education Agency and they oversaw the career technology. So I'm not saying they weren't supportive, but it's not. So Mr. George, I think, came in my classroom one time, and I think I was supposed to be on hall duty, and I forgot to go. It was a Monday, and he goes, "Lisa, you have hall duty," and I think that was it. But I'm telling you, he would have supported me any day. I know that, and I found out later. Actually, he hired me when I went into administration. So it's just kind of that's how I perceive it anyway.
Well, visiting, going to kids' homes, was that required?
Yes.
Going to
Yes.
Or was it just home ec it was required, or was that required with all the teachers in school?
it was
Yes, Tomek. Mhm.
And what was the purpose? Why?
it started out, they had to do a semester project. And it started that you went to the house to supervise to see what their project was. Well, they retained it and they gave us a conference period to do that. And so we would go and, and I would talk about my visit to the house like, "Hey, Michael, I liked your dog. That's the coolest dog." Well, the other kids would hear that, and some that were leery about you coming to their house would invite you, or we might go see somebody at work, or they might come see us. It to me was really good at getting to know kids, especially in those classes that we had that most of them were one semester, they weren't all year. And so I just thought it was a good thing, but that went away, that I can't see that happening at all anymore,
Mm-mm.
and it doesn't. It's been gone for a long time.
Mhm.
So was it scheduled or you just show up unannounced?
Oh,
I assume
no,
it's
it was
scheduled.
scheduled. It was scheduled.
Okay.
And
Okay.
not everybody had one. We didn't have to go, but most of the kids wanted us to, or a lot of them did. It gave us a lot of insight into our students, I feel like.
Yes.
Leslie, did you make those calls? And then I'm gonna start with you. Anybody ever invite you to dinner or stay for dinner?
No, usually we would go during our conference periods during the day, but yes, I went on a lot of home visits. I thought they were really beneficial. Like Lisa said, you got a lot of insight. It was important to the kids. They felt special if you went to their home, And I think once you would go to somebody's home and they talked about it, like she said, then other kids would be like, I want you to go to my house. So went to a lot of homes. And then I felt like I got that parent support too. And some of the parents then would jump in there and help you with a function or something like that because you took the time to get to know the parent too. So it was good.
Chelsea, can you share your experience?
Same thing. We had two off periods. One was for teacher planning and what you had to do, and the others to go on home visits. And yeah, you got to know parents and explain the class to them and see where the kids lived. It was a great experience for everybody.
Did any of the parents say, "Let me show you my kid's room"?
I don't think I saw any
I don't
room.
think I ever did.
I don't know. Remember that table or the living room usually is about as far as I got.
Yep.
Well, you guys, Lisa, you mentioned licks. So this is a question we also ask our classmates is, did you get licks? And if you did, do you remember why you got them? So I'm going to ask you guys, and you don't have to mention the student. I'll start with you, Chelsea. Did you ever have to give licks? And if you did, what was your first reason?
Never ever had to give licks. And if somebody did need licks, you'd send it to Mr. McBee, and he
Oh,
would
Lord.
knock him into the far wall. He had more power than anybody.
Yes, he did. I mean,
One
Lisa, you were
kid I did. Leslie, you remember in our classroom, there was that little window in the door, the
Yeah.
vocational building.
Mhm.
And so I guess it was my off period or whatever. I was standing in that window looking out, and a kid, I have no idea who the kid was, from building trades or vocational trades. He was out in the hallway between periods, and he pulls a flask out and takes a guzzle of whatever kind of booze it is. And I walk out in the hallway and I said, come with me. And I put my hand behind his arm, and I start escorting him to the principal's office, B's office. And about halfway to the office, I look, this kid is so huge. I can't even see my hand behind his arm. He's towering above me. And I thought, this kid could just take me out or say, get lost, lady. But anyway, I took him in for B's office. And so I guess I did. It was instrument in getting him licks at least, or whatever happened to him.
Dang.
So,
Wow.
Mrs.
That's
Koch.
bold to bring booze to school.
Oh,
Really, Lisa? That was easy.
so
No, I'm kidding. I never drank at school. I never did. I promise. I never did.
I was a goody two shoes, so I didn't do anything.
yeah. Well, I know I've never gave licks, assigned licks, anything like that. But it did, what Charlie said reminded me of a time I looked up and there was a kid in the back of the room. And I looked over, he was spitting in the trash can, and I knew he had a dip. And so he was in the very back of the room. And I was up talking, I was teaching. And so I walked over there and I stood beside him. And everybody kind of looked, and then I talked some more. I stood beside him for about 20 minutes.
Oh,
And,
wow.
and he finally got up, ran out, and he ran. And I was waiting by the door, and I said, don't dip in my class again. And he didn't, but it was funny. I don't know, he ran down the hall to the bathroom, but it was funny. I thought, I'm pretty sure I'm right. Yeah, I was. That made me think of it.
Leslie,
Know if y'all ever, well, I'm sorry, Leslie, did you ever give licks?
I gave swats one time, but I witnessed a lot of them from the ag and shop teachers. I was always the witness. And I said, why are y'all making me do this? Why do y'all make me watch all these SWATs? But yeah, I had to be the witness for a lot of them.
Well, tell us about that one look you gave.
Oh, I was student teaching actually, and one of the boys in athletics just kind of kept pushing and thinking that I wouldn't give SWATs because I guess because I was a woman, I'm not really sure. And so my teacher handed me the board and said, get after it. So I took him out in the hallway and gave him a couple of swats. And then that was the end of it. He never gave me any more trouble after that. And so I guess he was just testing, I
See,
think.
that's why you're an OG.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why. And Lisa, you being a tennis player, there was a rumor that Mr. McBee was a tennis player, and that's why he had that nice, smooth
Right.
baseball San Francisco Giant Will Clark swing. But
Right.
when it connected, yeah, I worked in the office one semester, and I'm not going to mention some of the football players, but they come out with a little watery eyes.
Yeah.
I mean,
He
Mr.
taught me math. He was my math teacher in high school. And he was a great teacher, before he started moving up through the ranks, but he definitely had a reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he did.
Is he still around, if I may ask?
I haven't seen him in a while. I'm sure he is, but I haven't seen him. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Lisa, what were we going to say a while ago?
I forgot. Oh, I want to know if y'all got licks when you were in high school.
No.
No.
I got one from my civics teacher. I think there were about 10 of us girls at one time, and we all got one SWAT. And I honestly am thinking it was for talking. I don't know, but we all got one SWAT, and that was it. Never happened again. So pretty much we were seniors and had senioritis, and I think that he had just probably had his fill of these silly girls. So but
Well, Charles, you mentioned that you guys were like 21, 22 when you first started. So one of the questions we have on our questionnaire is, did a small town stymie your social life? And the reason I'm asking this is I had a couple of friends at Tech that went to education, and I saw them like 8, 10 years later, and we were talking, discussing, and I would ask them what's some of the most embarrassing moments. I guess I was, you know, training for my podcast in 30 years. So when I was asking these questions, but I asked, and then one of them said when they were walking out of a convenience store, they had a case of beer, and they saw one of her young students, like she was teaching elementary, just look at it with all this disappointed eyes. So Lisa, that I'm not saying you were a party girl, but that
Well,
it's
all right, funny story. I don't remember because it changed around that time. And it was not a good thing. If y'all remember, the drinking age was 18.
Mhm.
And when I was a teacher, my husband and I, and he had some friends too, we owned a club in Plainview. And
Wow.
well, actually, and they were like absentee owners that they had a guy manage it. It was JR's. And a lot of kids wanted to go there because they had like a mechanical bull for a while back during that era when that was a big deal. And I didn't go in there often, but I would go in there some. And I would stay at the door because I could tell them who was 18 or not. Most of those kids, if they weren't a senior, they weren't 18 generally. And so we did that. And I've thought about that since, and that was kind of a tricky thing, but I never had any issues really over it. But that's no, I never did. Well, Plainview, you couldn't buy uh, liquor in Plainview anyway, so that wasn't ever really an issue. but we definitely had that club, and so it was kind of good once we sold that, because it was kids would always try to sneak in there, or come in and all of that. But we just owned it maybe for a couple of years in there. But yeah, it's while I was
I vaguely remember JRs. Do you,
you
Lisa?
Yeah,
yeah.
vaguely remember. I remember them.
Yeah.
Obviously, I never went there, but
So I mean, did you ever have to like go to Lubbock or Amarillo to have a nice dinner, a glass of wine? Of course, you could have it in Plainview. Oh, but there was a couple of restaurants that had private memberships. I thought, like El Jardín, but
Oh yeah, they may have,
but
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 yeah,
anyway,
we would go over to friends' houses, and a lot of times instead of going out in Plainview,
right,
so the others may have.
As
Leslie.
yeah, as to I think, we had I was in a community service organization, and we would have, little get-togethers and stuff with our spouses sometimes, but it was always at someone's home or whatever, and we might go dancing in Lubbock from time to time because we love to dance, still love to dance, and actually taught dance and all of that. So after a while, every now and then I would run into a student when I was out dancing, but it was never anything awkward or, weird that, I felt like, I wasn't being out of hand or anything like that. We were just dancing. So, but that's all I can remember. Yeah, Plainview was pretty calm, I think.
Did you go to Coldwater or Midnight Rodeo?
I went to Coldwater in college, some, not
Okay.
fun, but some. And then Midnight Rodeo was kind of a little further down the road sometimes, but occasionally, we were having kids, we had little kids, and we were busy. So, yeah, we didn't go out and party, if we got to go out every now and then, that was, a special treat because you're busy taking care of little ones. But that's all I can remember about that time. But
It's funny you say, and we'll get to you, Charles. Is living in Lubbock, I lived there 10 years after high school, and I went to Midnight Rodeo. I went to Midnight Rodeo many years. Was that rock and roll one? That rock one.
Roxy's.
Um, Roxy's, went to Roxy's in New West, Club 100. But it's like most of us lived in the South Side, and when they opened up bars on the West Side, closer to the Northwest by 4th Street, we're like, that's too far to drive. Like, no, we don't want to go. I've been living in Houston since '97. You got to go 30, 45 minutes any direction to go somewhere nice. So it's like back then, it's like, 10 minutes is too far to drive, too far. But anyway, Charles, what about you? You and Mr. Don.
Well, that was a funny thing because it was already Dawn's photography before we got married or moved to Plainview. So, and then I was always Mrs. Dixon. So we'd go any place and you'd see all these kids and they go, "Hi, Dawn. Hi, Mrs. Dixon." And that's what it's always been, Dawn and Mrs. Dixon. So,
That's
Okay.
interesting.
So
Did Charles, so you mentioned that when you first started teaching that you cut your hair off and attempted to look older. Since y'all started teaching school so young, and did it impact how you dressed? Like, did you start dressing like in what you perceive to be like more mature clothing?
I don't think so. I mean, I just, of course, I mean, I'm speaking for me, but I feel like all of us, part of our major is fashion.
yeah.
And so fashion was always a big part of my life. And so I just felt like I was just me. I just, I never dressed in anything inappropriate anyway, but I didn't try to look like a old school marm or anything, I guess you'd say.
check out your ensemble now. It's nice.
Oh, thank you.
I asked that question because I still remember when my sister started teaching, and I think she was 22 or 23, and I mean, really, ever since then, she has always dressed kind of school marmy, I think. So when we would go out and do stuff, I'm 6 years older than my sister. People would always ask her, "Oh, Teresa, how much younger is your sister than you?" They still ask her that, and I'm 60 and she's 54. She does not like that. And she's beautiful, and I think she looks really young. I don't know why they've asked her that, but she's just always dressed more conservative and, um, you know, been conscientious of who she might run into when she's out and about. So she's always dressed far more conservative than I have. And I think that's why people always thought she was older, because of the clothes that she wore. But when you start teaching school at a really young age, and she looked at 23, she looked like she was 16. I mean, she looked really young.
Well, let me ask this, and I'll start with Charleston. Let's flip it. Were there any kids that dressed? Did you have to send any kids home? In other words, because they weren't dressed, yeah, with a t-shirt, an appropriate t-shirt, or jeans. I mean, now girls wear spandex and short shorts, but I mean, did you have to send any kids home?
No,
Did
I don't
you?
remember
So you didn't
the
even.
problem. I didn't.
Okay.
I don't remember sending kids home as a teacher. As an administrator, yes, but as a teacher, no. But going back to how we dressed, I think it was just different then, because I know Charlesy, she's a great seamstress, and I like to sew too, so we've done that. And Leslie, we all have that ability, and like Leslie said, it was part of what we studied when we were at Tech. We had to sew. We liked fashion. But it's virtually so much different now. And I go in every school in Lubbock, and I rarely ever see a teacher that's not in jeans. And if they're not in jeans, they're in spandex. I mean, it's just way more casual than it was back in the day.
Teachers are wearing that?
Every time I see a teacher, they're in
Uh,
jeans.
We were always
I'm
at
going to observe them. Yeah.
Friday. If we got to work on Friday, we were excited. So yeah, we
Right.
did that.
Mhm.
So, and you
Whenever
guys go to art? What, Chelsea?
Oh, one of my favorite things about the way I dressed was, again, you make a lot of your clothes, whatever. And I was up in front of the class lecturing one day, and I kept trying to hit my hand in my pocket. And finally, some kid goes, "Miss Dixon, you don't have pockets in that outfit." I'm just like, oh, I'm embarrassed.
Did you guys ever go to
Yeah.
Arts Theatrical in Lubbock?
I did.
I worked there.
Well, I took and taught ballet in Lubbock. And so Suzanne Aker was my teacher, even like while I was at Tech. And so that's where we bought our clothes, or Arts had a lot of the ballet and dance clothes at the time.
Yeah,
So
I
you
worked for
taught
them
there. You worked there?
yeah, from the mid 80s to the early 90s. No, late 80s to the mid
Uh-huh.
90s. And from there, I would do all their trade shows across the country for
Wow.
arts. And then a company out of New York hired me. So I went to New York and lived there a couple of years
Uh-huh.
and worked in the fashion industry at the garment center. And I was able to go to two, what do you call it? Oh, help me out, ladies. Fashion shows.
Oh yeah.
And that was during the supermodel era. Helena
Right.
Christensen, uh, I can't think of others. Naomi, but anyway, yeah, these top, late girls. I was just here at the mid mid to late 20s, and I'm like, oh, look at these supermodels. See them in
Right.
videos and movies, and so I was, so it was a fun time for this kid from Plainview.
Yeah, I did. When I was at Tech, there was an organization through our department that was Fashion Board. And so we would do modeling for like local businesses for like little events that they would have and stuff like that, just to help them promote their line of clothing for the spring or fall or whatever like that. And so that's kind of, I think, where I really got into the the newest fashion things that were out there and just kind of the fun fads and things like that. So that was a fun experience.
Did you know how to sew as well as Lisa and Chelsea?
I do. I just don't love it. I didn't.
Yeah, I mean I think the generation where it most majority died because
Yeah.
not because back then you guys were taught by your mothers and your mothers taught by your grandmothers. That's why you don't have hardly any independent fabric stores anymore. When I was
Right.
working in that industry, there was tons all over the country. So I traveled and sold fabrics and stuff like that. And now I don't know if Joann's Fabrics. I think they may be out of business. So I don't know.
Yeah, they are.
I think they are.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I liked
Yeah.
it okay. It just, I guess, of all the subjects we taught, that was probably not at the top of my list. But my mom was a great seamstress and she sewed for me and my kids all the time. So I don't guess I really had to sew things as much. I did sew curtains and pillows and things like that for my house and stuff, but she would sew clothes more than I did. So
Cool.
That's
Well,
something.
let's go back. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying that I made a beautiful blouse in 7th grade, and that was the end of my sewing. And I was dejected because a classmate stole my blouse and then lied about it. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm done with this. And now I totally regret it. My mom was an incredible seamstress, and I always had, one of a kind outfits in middle school and high school because of my mom. And I wish I'd learned it. And now at 60, I want to take sewing class.
should do it.
Why
Mhm.
not? Yeah.
Why
So I want to ask, there's been a lot of movies about teachers. Is there a movie that one of can you name a favorite movie of yours that was based on a teacher?
The one I don't like is Bad Teacher.
Mm.
I don't like that one. But
Cameron Diaz? Which one? So you're working Cameron Diaz, huh?
right. One, and it's an old movie, but Mr. Holland's Opus, he was a choir type, and it was Richard Dreyfuss. I always liked that one. That was one. But one of my favorite ones is The Blind Side, and that was not so much just focusing on teaching, but on family and the sports. Always liked that too.
Cool.
Uh,
Leslie?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of the name of it, but it was Morgan Freeman, and he was the teacher, and he was teaching kids that were, kind of struggling with wanting to be at school and all that kind of stuff. Do y'all remember the name of that?
He carried a bat, didn't he?
Yes, yes. It was so good and so inspiring, and I think I cried through half of it because,
It's based on a true story. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think as teachers, when you
Yeah.
watch shows like that, you just can relate to all of it. And the
Right.
connection he had with his kids and stuff, just like we did with ours. So yeah, it's very touching.
Mhm.
So I'm looking it up, and you guys are telling your story. So I'm gonna see if I can find
Charles, what
what
about
movie.
you?
I don't watch movies, so I don't have either.
What?
Well, my favorite teacher movie, and y'all don't know this, but I went into education as well. And I didn't end up teaching school. I got fired. And that's a whole story for another show. It's the only time I've ever been terminated from a job, and I'm very proud of the reason I got terminated. And anyway, do y'all remember the movie To Sir with Love?
Mhm.
I loved that movie. And I was a small child when it came out, but that movie just really had an indelible imprint on me. I've never forgotten it.
Mm.
And it's got a great theme song too.
Mine
Needless
was
to say.
mine's Freedom Riders with Hilary
That was
Swank.
good.
Oh, that one's good.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I really like that one. That's based on a true story as well.
It is. Yeah.
So
So
while Flo's looking that up, I want to know
Lean on Me, by
Yes.
the way. So
Yes.
Yeah. So good.
what was the high point of your career and why? Charles, I'm going to start with you.
Just kids that tell you made an impact in their lives. The fact that you think maybe you did that just a little bit really is the best part of what we did.
Excellent. Leslie?
Yes, absolutely. the relationships that you form with kids, and then they grow up to be adults, and then you still have connection with them. And then sometimes, lots of times actually, you teach their children down the road. And I always laughed and I said, the first time somebody walks in here and says, you taught my grandmother, I'm retiring. So, but yeah, the relationships for sure. And then I would have to say second to that, the subject matter. I loved what I taught. I loved what I taught so much.
Good.
That
Lisa?
Okay, well, I think for one thing too, that in just reflecting in preparation for this, thinking about it, a lot of it was what Leslie said, having that second generation. I know one time I had a student and his dad in my office, and I was talking to him, and this was as principal, it wasn't in the classroom, but that did happen in both places. But the dad finally said, Miss Kirsch, you keep calling him my name. And I said, there's a reason for that, but it was, anyway, so I laughed. But what really stands out to me were several, I could just name kid after kid, that every single thing was stacked against them, yet they made it and they succeeded. And it's so rewarding to see them come back and be great parents, to be involved, to have successful lives, to have joy in their lives. It's watching those kids grow up and then remembering, when you can remember them when they were freshmen in high school. So that, I think, would be, I guess, the kind of the pinnacle for me, is just seeing kids really doing well and in their later lives.
Yeah,
Has any, I'm sorry, go ahead, Leslie. I'm
I
sorry.
was going to add to that and say that since I retired, just the former students that reach out to you privately and just let you know what they're doing in their life, or if they have something they want to talk to you about or get some advice, or just like I had a former student message me the other day that she just got hired in Lubbock to teach family consumer science, and she was just ecstatic. And so that it's very rewarding, because that love for that subject, you share that with them, and just thanking us for inspiring them. But the thing is that they inspire us every bit as much with their lives and things too. So that's very rewarding.
wonderful.
Yeah, it is. And there was a lot of comments, whenever the promo page, I mean, a lot of your former students were posting things about you guys. I think one said that I guess she was a young mother in high school and you helped her with that, saved her life. So kudos to you guys. So on that same note, we didn't have cell phones back in the 80s, but was there a memory or moment during your first few years of teaching that you wish you had a cell phone and would have captured that memory? Leslie?
Oh man. Gosh. You know, I can't think of just one specific one, but I guess I was thinking you had Summer Smith Daly on your show the other day, and she was talking about um, my class, and I just remember her in there with Darren Foster and some of those kids, and just some of the things that we talked and discussed, and just kind of the bonds that you make with them. But I think coronations, athletic events, things like that, you kind of do wish you could have gone back and gotten some pictures of that. But I did take my camera to class. I have a lot of pictures of the kids in the classroom. So bunch of acting silly and taking pictures. So
I mean, your first year is 87, correct?
85, 86. I
Oh,
started
85, okay.
Charles's class in 85, and then I finished in the spring of 86. So
Okay.
mhm.
What about you, Lisa? Is there a memory?
I have a lot. I actually have a couple of albums of pictures through the years that we, doing various things at school. And I just took sound like Leslie said, I took a camera and took pictures. So I've got that, not like it would have been now with classes and cell phones, but they're really in most schools, there's so many restrictions on using cell phones and taking pictures of kids now, more than at the time, but anyway, it's that I do that, and of course I've got yearbooks from nearly every year. So that's another fun thing.
Chelsea?
Um, I guess we were kind of blessed in the fact that we photographed all the kids. Dawn did, and I would, go help, and always had tons of pictures and see tons of people through all the years too. So
Mhm.
Yeah, I noticed the photo I put on our page. I'm like, that's Don definitely took that photo of you. I mean, ladies, you guys look great too, but I mean, that was a glamour shot, Mrs. Dixon.
Charleston's was professional. Yeah. I noticed that too. I thought, oh, this is great.
You know, I did get permission from one of you guys, and we talked on the phone about this, and there's an incident. It's a good thing there wasn't any cell phones back then. It was Mrs. Kirsch's class. It was my senior year. We're sitting there, and she had a speaker, a young mother who came and spoke to us about being a mom, and she brought her toddler. And then during her talking with us, all of a sudden, the toddler got hungry. He went over there and lifted her shirt up. And yes, it was exposed. And here's these 17-year-old, 18-year-old kids like myself with hormones shooting out the where. But we were like, oh, and she did it twice during it happened twice. So I'll let you take over, Mrs. Kirsch. And she remembered.
I did, because the main thing I remember, Michael, was you weren't sitting right in front of me, were you? Because I was at the
I
very
was to your right on the
okay.
first row. No, second row. For some reason, I remember Doug White.
Yeah.
He was next to me.
Whoever was sitting, that lady, the reason I invited her, the teacher that taught that class before me recommended her. She said I think she had those babies at home. I think it was like a home birth. And I said, well, come talk about what that was like in your experience. Well, she had that toddler, but she had an infant too. And I thought she was talking about breastfeeding the infant. And here that toddler goes, pulls up her shirt. And I remember the guy that sat right in front of me, he just turned around and stared at me. And I was like, oh my. And I told her in between classes, I said, you can't do that. We can't have that. And she was cooperative, and I'm sure she went and told her group that she was a member of. It's natural, and nobody. But I'm sorry, I didn't ever invite that person back. But it was memorable, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was. I mean,
My God.
me and the guys spoke. We speak about it every reunion. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, how funny.
No, I'm kidding. I'm
glad that made an impact.
Speaking of reunions, have you guys ever attended any reunion? Not your own reunions, but other, like Plainview, some of your students?
I
Lisa?
went to the class of 98. And I'll tell you why. That was the first 94, 95 was the first year I went into administration. And if y'all remember, or it was even a little bit different from when y'all were there, but you moved with that class all the way up until they graduated. Like, I was their administrator for every year until they graduated. And so I knew all of those kids really well. And I had a nephew also in that class, and they had come from Austin. So I said, I'll just go with you. But of course, I attend all my reunions here in Plainview, and we go to all my husband's reunions. They have reunions all the time. But those are the only ones I've gone to.
Chelsea? You attend any?
No, I would love to sometime, but no.
Well, we have our 45th in 2 years. We'll send you an invite as long as Dawn will take our photos. Just kidding. I'm kidding. Leslie, what about you?
I think I popped by a few years ago, and I'm always thinking I should do that. I need to go by and do that, but it seems like every time that I think about it, it's because I see that they already had it, and
Yeah.
so if I know about it, I think I would pop by some of those just for a minute and see some of the former students and stuff. That would be fun.
I think
Yeah,
it'd be fun
we
for
encourage it.
students too. We had our 40th 3 years ago, and that's the first reunion I went to, and it would have definitely been fun to have some of the faculty that were there when we were seniors. Of course, Mr. Brown goes to everybody's reunion,
He does.
Yeah, it's
and he
He
came to
does.
ours and he spoke.
Yes.
Very sweet.
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
He makes his presence. So I want to go back to. So I asked you what the highlight of your career was, or the high point. You know, for all the years that you taught or were an administrator, it wasn't 100% pleasant and hunky dory. So, was there ever a low point in your career, or something that was discouraging, or um, something along those lines? And you don't have to be 100% specific, but if you could share some low point in your career where something happened, or you were discouraged, or you thought maybe you wanted to go in a different direction. I'll start with Leslie.
Um, I think nothing to do with the students, I can't say, but I know one year I got to school and found out that I was not in my classroom anymore, and I was a floating teacher, which is what they call that, where you rotate classrooms, and I rotated every class period, and I had 5 different class periods and 5 different subjects. And I thought, if I have to do that again next year, I'm not sure that I can do that. So that was it was exhausting and overwhelming. And but by semester I kind of was getting in a little bit of a groove, but it was difficult because you couldn't have your things in your classroom. Everything that you would have, you had to carry on a cart upstairs, downstairs, upstairs, downstairs. And so that was hard, but nothing to do with the kids. It was just the circumstances. And I think that was because we had probably the largest staff that we'd had, and just a lack of classrooms. So just kind of was one of those things that happened, but it certainly made me appreciate it when I got my own classroom and I didn't have to move at all. That was a blessing for me, for sure.
Cool.
Wow, I can imagine how challenging that must have been.
It was, yeah.
Not fun and stressful. Wow.
Yeah.
My goodness. Charlesy, what about you?
First of all, Leslie, that sounds awful. I cannot imagine having to do that. Probably
Lady remembers that, don't you?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It was terrible. Yeah.
probably the worst thing that ever happened, or I had a kid get up and left a note with his best friend and walked out of my room. And his best friend reads the note and runs up and hands it to me, and it was a suicide note.
Oh.
And I said, go as fast as you can and get Mr. McBee. And everything worked out okay. He was okay. But that was still, I can tell you, I'm not going to say his name, but never have forgotten it. And, how much that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So,
How many years was that? What year?
oh gosh, I only taught for like 6.5 years. So it was probably year 3 or 4, I'm guessing.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you're still in your mid to late 20s then?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause yeah. So
Okay,
I
Lisa?
quit when I was quit teaching school when I was 28, I guess. And then I went back long term for both Lisa and Leslie when they had babies, but not full time.
Cool. Okay, cool. Lisa?
I hadn't thought of it, but I had a student stay after class one time and told me that he felt like he was going to kill himself. So I had to deal with that. That's hard. But I've also, through the years, had students that have died. Well, that they've been something, they've tragically been killed, or that is a hard thing. And then but I think that's a low point. And also it was a low point for me to go just this one year, going from the classroom into administration, because I loved being a teacher and I liked it, and I accepted that job. Mr. George twisted my arm. But I took that job, and I had only taught juniors and seniors, and I was the freshman dean. And so, what I was dealing with. It was discipline, and I never really had dealt with discipline. I absolutely hated it. And if I hadn't been really, really hard headed, I would have probably gone right back to the classroom. But I hit my stride and learned that it got better after that first year, and then I got where I did like it later. But that was the hardest year of my career, because I'm more of a classroom hands-on person. So that was tough.
Let me ask you guys this, is we're in the subject kind of, the last maybe 30, 40 years, all the, these school shootings. Did it affect you more as a mom or as a teacher, or maybe both? Lisa?
Okay, we at Plainview, from time to time, when I first went into administration, we had a drive-by shooting that year. We did those were just hard times. While I was there in administration, the police called one night and said that we'd had a threat at the high school, blah blah blah, and they would be there. And I asked the chief of police. I said, please do not come make a big presence, and because it's going to create chaos. And I knew the kid in question who supposedly had said something. I said, I know where he is. They said, we're going to get him when he leaves his house before he gets to school. Well, they didn't. For some reason, they didn't. And because this fits the description you just gave, my youngest son was, he's maybe about a sophomore or junior at the time. And so anyway, I kept waiting on the police to get the kid, and it was real tense. And I finally told some of the police in the office. I said, he's already here. I'm going to go get him. I know exactly where he stands every morning in the cafeteria. I'll go get him. And so one of the police officers said, I'm going with you. I said, just stay back, stay out of sight. So I'll get the kid. I saw him and said, come with me. We got him in the office. Well, then there were cell phones then. My son called and said, and I thought, oh, he's worried about me. Well, he called and he goes, I'm not going to ag. There's not any kids here. They all left. They ran out yelling. I said, yes, you are. You're going to ag. I said, yeah, he said, I'm going to be the only one in there. And so he went. I've been in lockdowns in schools now. As a parent, I don't think I would be as worried, especially with all the security now. But the I every teacher, I promise, everybody's done this, because in the classroom I did it too. I would stand there and think, if somebody came in here with a gun right now, where would I put these kids? How would I handle it? And y'all were talking about the room with an office with the windows, and I had already figured out every one of the kids could fit in there, and you could put the blinds down. You rehearse that in your head, even if even if nobody has told you to do that, or there wasn't a formal plan. I think you always feel responsible. Those are your kids. And so that to me is just it always was right there. I would go through that in my head. So anyway, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah,
But
that does.
yeah.
What about you, Leslie?
Yeah, me too as well. In fact, the last, I don't know how many years that I was teaching, we did the practices, the lockdowns and lockouts and all the things. And I would just always talk to my kids and just tell them, listen, when we practice this, I need y'all to take it seriously, because if it ever did happen and you don't take it seriously and you just clown around each time, you're not going to be prepared for what to do. And then I did like Lisa. I just thought, okay, what would I do? And I walked through everything, every scenario, and that little office with the windows was my go-to. And I said, we might just have to cram everybody in there really tight, but they would be safe in there. So yeah, you feel an obligation, as in they are your children, and your job is to protect them at all costs. And I think anytime I saw that happening at another school, I thought, if that was my kids, I would do this, I would do that, and all those things. But as a parent, it is scary as well. So, but thankfully we didn't have anything bad happen. So
Yes, thankful. What about you, Miss Chelsea?
Back in the day when I quit teaching school, I don't think it was even a thought,
Uh,
I think
uh,
kids back in that day, we all had gun racks and their rifles or shotguns in the back of their pickups in school parking lot. You never thought anything about it. So
Yeah, I mean,
that's true. That is
terrible.
true.
Yeah, I mean, my brother had a shotgun in his El Camino. I mean, it was unfathomable. Like, you would never even conjure the idea that somebody would take that gun and come to the
Exactly.
school and start to shoot your fellow classmates or whatever. So,
mhm.
Chelsea, why did you leave teaching?
what?
Share?
He was no, that's okay. He was just
So, Chelsea, why did you leave teaching after 6 years?
I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I had my son, and I remember one day he was at daycare and under a table, and I thought, I've got a house with 2 basements. Why, so, and I thought, oh, I'd work at the studio a little bit. Well, I helped in events. I didn't work at the studio daily. And then I did the Hallmark show for 20 years. But, I love teaching school. I loved it so much. And you make again, you feel like you're making a difference in people's lives. And I thought
Okay,
I'd probably go back, and I just really didn't. So
that's cool. Well, let's have a little fun now. You know, we all got in trouble. What are some of the excuses that you guys knew that they were just a flat out lie? Do you guys remember any sharing any stories or excuses a student gave because why you skipped school or why you roaming the hall? I mean, just Leslie, I'll start with you. Is there any one story that stands out?
Hmm. Um, Nothing is coming to me specifically, but you hear a little bit of everything. And I know in teaching, you're just like, try again because I'm not buying that one. So try to figure out something else you're going to tell me. But yeah. And then I think my last year teaching, this comes to mind. So I was filling in for one of the coaches who had to leave early to go with athletics. And so I just went in to cover his class. And so I had sophomores through seniors. And there was a couple of kids in there that were my students, but the rest of them I didn't know. And so I was laughing because it took about 10 minutes to get all the kids into the seats that they belonged in, and all the little excuses I was getting from all these kids. And so I was telling them, okay, I know this is your seat, and all of that. And so I just remember one of my kids in my class, he was a senior, he was sitting on the front seat, and he turned around to this sophomore and he said, dude, she is not a sub. She's a teacher. She's my teacher, and you don't want to go there.
Oh wow.
And he said, do what? And he was like, she's a teacher. She's not a sub. So just go sit in your seat. And so we were just laughing because, I mean, some of those kids I feel sorry for substitutes because they will put them through the ringer sometimes. So, I didn't sub after I retired. So I thought, don't know that I want to go backwards from the wonderful teaching experiences I had from all the honoriness, but you know.
Miss Lisa, what about you?
It wasn't an excuse. It was just I knew a kid was lying to me one time. This was back in y'all's days that kids had to do a project, and I remember this boy brought a project, and they could make something, or there are a lot of different things they could do. He brings in a baby blanket, and so it was child development, and he brings a baby blanket that's all hand embroidered and everything. It's gorgeous. Well, I knew he didn't do it. They had to do that. And so rather than confront him, the next day he came in and all the kids were there, and I held it up and I said, I just want y'all to look at this. I said, I am just blown away. And I mean, he is laughing, looking at guys around him. And I said, I'm so impressed. I said, in fact, wouldn't y'all like to see this stitch? And I said, I've got some fabric here and a needle that's threaded. I want him to show us how he did this skill. And so he came up. I mean, and so he was, I mean, turned bright red. He could not do one bit of it. And so I said, you know what? You've got one day to do a project that you made, and he redid it. I don't know, but it was funny because I was thinking, you know what? Rather than confront him and have him lie to me again, I'm gonna have him show us how to do that. So
That's
that
pretty
was
cool.
something I remember.
That's cool.
Brilliant. That is
Yeah.
a brilliant strategy.
Yeah.
You put him in his place without,
Yeah.
totally humiliating him. I mean, that's
I pretty much did, but
but it was very strategic on your part.
right.
Miss
Did you
Charlesy?
ever, as a
Oh.
teacher, throw a calculated tantrum to scare your students?
Mm.
Charlesie's
Charlesy?
got a look on her face.
Oh, I was just going to answer about, I didn't ever catch anybody lying, but there are two kids, and I'm going to name them. They're probably lucky I didn't shoot them.
Oh, geez.
Vondel Burnett and Jimmy Cornelius.
Oh, they're
My
cool.
classroom- Came to my classroom with a burlap sack. Do you know what was in that sack? A live snake.
Ah, rattlesnake, I bet.
Yes, I don't know. I thought it was something else. And last week I saw Vondel's daddy at church, and I said, I can tell you a story about Vondel. He goes, it was a rattlesnake. I said, it was a rattlesnake? He goes, yes, it was a rattlesnake. I'm sure of that. His daddy said that. So anyway, I was like, get out of my room, go take that thing and put it in the back of pickup.
Why did they bring it? Did they tell you why?
I think they just wanted to show it to me. I don't know. Like
Uh,
I said, they're lucky they lived.
you know what? If we have ever those guys on our show, we'll ask them, especially Vondel. I am gonna text Donna and say, hey, Vondel's name was dropped. Listen to the end of the show.
Again, I saw him at church Sunday too, or last week, and I was like, I'm telling so yeah.
That's cool.
So one of the questions on the list that I do want to address is, are you willing to share some of the scuttlebutt in the
Teachers Lounge? Yeah, I heard there was a full bar back there, and steaks and. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I heard that one of you guys had to go to Nazareth every week to stock it. So anyway, Leslie, what about? Can you answer?
Well, basically, when I first started teaching, everybody got together, or a lot of people got together in the teachers lounge, and visited and graded and all the things. And sometimes it was really good and really fun, and just talking to each other and picking each other's brains about different things. But then occasionally there would be negative teachers that just, wanted to run down certain students and stuff. And I know me personally, I don't like negativity. And so I would just choose to not go down there because I just don't I don't want to be affected by someone else's opinion of my student. You know what I mean? And so if it was really negative like that, I just wouldn't go. But I remember a lot of fun times with teachers and coaches and stuff, and we would laugh and share stories and all the things, so that was good too. But yeah. And when I first started teaching, you could smoke in the teacher's lounge, which I didn't smoke, but some teachers did smoke. And I was like, oh, it could be brutal.
So no smoking in the boys' room, huh?
Yeah, they
Those are
did.
the teachers' lounge.
Y'all remember that, right? You could
Mhm.
like,
Oh,
woo.
wow.
That was
Yeah.
what I was going to say. I don't remember conversations, but I remember everybody smoking. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I remember. Teachers' lounge
Mm-hmm.
smoking.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that would be horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. Certain class periods, if you're in there with the smokers, it was like, ooh, it could be brutal.
Well, teaching us, Lisa, back in the day, it may drive a teacher to drink and smoke.
No, I was a good girl in
Yeah,
high
anyway, we'll
school.
skip that. No, I'm kidding. She was a good girl.
Yeah.
Lisa, what about you?
I almost identical to them. It still astounds me that they did. There was so much smoking going on in there. I mean, we had our mailboxes in the teachers' lounge, so they all just reeked of cigarette smoke. But I purposely did not go in there very often, and that's the reason I didn't. I don't want to sit and listen to the talk as much. And plus, I put a premium on getting my work done at school. So I didn't have to go, I had a family at home. I didn't want to. So I worked. I didn't go. And there were some that just camped out in there during their conference periods. And that was kind of the main thing. I didn't want to hear the negativity. So anyway,
Miss
I
Miss
steered clear.
Mrs. Dixon?
That's what I said. Just the smoking. Yeah.
Smoking. Okay. Well, is there a student or students that stands out in your career, your teaching career? Because we always ask our classmates, "Hey, is there a teacher who's impactful or that you like?" What about? Let's turn it around. What about you, Mrs. Charles? Is there a particular student like Michael Flores Flo that stands out?
There's so many kids that just touched my heart. I mean, there's so many kids that touched my heart that, I love seeing somebody to this day. Hi, Miss Dixon.
Cool.
You always know you taught them in school. They call you Mrs. Dixon. And Geraldine Holt's one of them. Yeah, I mean, just a lot of kids that I love to this day.
Good. Lisa?
Um, I'm not going to say any real specifics because they could be identified, and it's not anything bad. It's great. Just kids that I've seen, and when you go to their house and you see what their living is like, how they're growing up, how their parents struggle, and really try to make a home for them, but everything is really, really difficult. And they seem to have every odd against them. And then you see them later, or by the time they leave, they get a big scholarship, they end up going to college, they do well. That to me, and there have been numerous kids like that I'm just so proud. In fact, there were two kids that came out here the other day, and they're not kids. They're one of them's like 36, but he came to work on our conditioner. And the first thing he saw was my husband, and he said, "Hey, coach," because he coached him in summer baseball when they were little. But he also went through the high school and seeing the professional skills that he has now. And he told me he coaches his daughter's softball league, and they're very involved parents, and you're just like, oh, I'm so glad to see them doing well. You take pride in it, and people doing well and passing along goodness. So I think that's a lot of it.
Cool. Leslie?
Um, Gosh, there's so many names to name. You guys know who you are out there that mean the world to me, but there's so many just that you just grow to love so much. And I know like and we're all this way. A lot of times you would have kids that would take every class you taught. And so you might teach them for 3 years. And so by the time you have them that third year, you are very, very close. And, I see them a lot. And then the ones that have connected with me once they graduate, and every now and then, we go have lunch or have coffee or something. So I just love so many of them. I can't imagine what my life would be like if I didn't have all those special kids. So that are
Cool.
of them now. So yeah.
Well, Miss Lisa, you have any other questions? Because we're getting close to the 2-hour mark.
No, let's, you want to ask your final question and I'll ask my final.
Which I already did. But
You already
the cell
did.
phone.
Yeah, the
Yes.
cell phone thing. Okay. So my final question to you, wonderful ladies, is with all the wisdom and knowledge that you've acquired in your life as a teacher, administrator, and your jobs that you've done, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your younger self? And I'll start with Lisa.
Okay. That I would say, because I wanted to be a teacher even before I was in school, I would say follow your heart and keep doing that. Go through the same channels that you did, pay attention, because it just been such a rewarding career. And I've got so many friends and so many positives way outweigh any of the negatives. So I'd say go for it, stick with it, and just continue to do that and try to make an impact. So that would be the advice I would give myself, and don't just do the same thing. Keep the same friends.
Wonderful. Leslie?
I would just say, don't be nervous. I think, when I first started teaching, I was a little bit nervous, and I would just say, soak every minute in and make all of the connections you can with all the kids, and just love it and show your passion through your teaching. I think that is just so important, and I wouldn't have chosen anything else. So
That's wonderful. Charlesy?
Enjoy the ride and all the people that, come into our lives. We're blessed to do what we did and to have good friends and great kids, and just enjoy it and be thankful for all the people that we have.
yes.
Nice. Well, ladies, thank you for coming on our show. I mean, it's honored and that you guys came on and shared all these beautiful stories, and don't be strangers. But I want to ask you guys for your parting words, and I'll start with you, Mrs. Dixon.
Y'all are precious. Y'all are wonderful. Y'all are doing a great community service, and it's good to see my other former teachers. So,
Leslie.
Just thank y'all for reaching out. It was such an honor to do this, and especially with my friends, it was really fun. And I just appreciate the opportunity to talk about the things that we love. So
Cool. Mrs. Kirsch.
Well, I ditto to what Charles and Leslie have said, and it's been a fun time to go back and reminisce and think about the various things that happened through the career. But Lisa and Michael, it is so refreshing for you to do what you're doing. I absolutely love it, and like Charles said, it is a great thing you're doing to the community, because you hear so much negative and so many bad things. It's fun to think back and laugh, and thank y'all for what you're doing. I've thoroughly enjoyed going back and looking. I looked at Leah Kays today, and she did a great interview with y'all, and I intend to go back and look at others, because we've got, people forget Lakeview is a great place, and this is a great place to grow up, to live, to work. So thank y'all for affirming that.
yes.
Yeah, please encourage other teachers to come on and come on with them. I mean, join them. I mean, we've had multiple classmates that have been on our show. So please don't make this the last time. We'd love to talk. I do. So
Thank
It's-
you.
yeah. Well, Lisa, will you give the party words on my behalf?
Yes, I have lots of parting words. First of all, thank you all so much. I'm just so honored, and I know I'm speaking on behalf of both Michael and myself. What you do, what you did as a profession is priceless. Um, I think that teachers should be paid CEO salaries. I think when you go into the teaching profession, it is such an honorable profession that is not recognized, I think, in the way that it should be. And you teachers make the biggest impact on students. I remember all my teachers from first grade on, and everybody that had impact on me, and how that changed my life. And um, you know, I'm sure not every student has had the opportunity to tell you how you changed their lives or how you impacted them, but what you've done, and it's just incredible. And anybody who was in your classroom was fortunate to have you as a teacher. Um, I'm going to share a very, very short story about uh, my sister. I still teach, but I teach in a different arena. My sister has a real success story, and this is applicable to you as teachers. We moved from Plainview. Well, I transferred from Tech to UNT, but in 8th grade, my sister left Plainview and moved to Dallas, and that was a real hardship for her to go from a small town to this giant high school. And she was lost and struggling and had to go to summer school to pass. School was never her favorite thing. And, I don't know what would have happened had a teacher not taken her under his wing. And it was actually her FFA teacher who said, find a vocation that can support you until you figure out what you want to do with your life. So she went to cosmetology. She took cosmetology in high school, which was offered here in Dallas. And ultimately, I mean, she went to Tech and flunked out. And my parents made her go to junior college to get her credits, and then went back to Tech and supported herself. Doing hair all the years. And she never, ever thought, well, I'm going to be a school teacher, much less an administrator. And she's living her dream. And I'm super proud of her. She excels at her job. She was an excellent teacher, department head, administrator, and she's an incredible superintendent. And, to be a witness to my little sister doing this and how important education is and teachers are. I mean, a lot of teachers have a greater impact on students than their parents do, because not all parents are involved. And as teachers, that you become the most important person in a young person's life many, many times. And it makes me very emotional. I want to cry. I'm giving y'all virtual hugs, because what you do as a profession, to me, is the most important job in the world. It's more important than anything. And, I wish teachers were compensated for that. But thank you from my heart for y'all being here, for choosing the vocation that you chose, and for the impact that you made on all your students, including myself.
Yes.
I'm just so honored that
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, Lisa and I will be in Plainview the weekend for the all-school reunion, and we're planning to do a live show, or a show, depends. Hopefully my equipment works, from the Broadway Brew between 5 and 7, in the evening on July 18th. So if you guys are in town, stop by and say hello to us, and Lisa will give you that physical hug.
Hey.
I'm known for my hugs, by the way. Ask anybody who knows me. I'm known for my hugs. So anyway, thank you so much. What a pleasure and what a delight to spend a couple of hours with y'all reminiscing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all.
Well, good
Yeah.
night. Good
Good
night. Bye, Don.
He's waiting.
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
tell
okay.
him to pop in real quick. Come in, Don. I mean, I don't know how many students you photographed. Hey, hello, sir. Thank you for your service. I'm pretty sure as
Oh, we're
well.
honored to do photography for 42 years in Plainview. So it was fantastic. Love the people, love the good times, and photographed a lot of kids during that time. 42 years.
Yeah, including me.
Absolutely.
I
Senior
was going to have this
pictures.
big portrait, Dawn, to show you of me
And
that you took.
that
So
July
it's
18th will be our 50th year reunion. So class of 75 will be there. So
oh cool. We'll stop by the Broadway Brew and say hello to Lisa and I.
we will.
So well anyway, thank you guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good to see y'all.
See you too.
Likewise.
Bye.
Likewise. Well, Lisa, I'm gonna let you start.
Oh my gosh. It was so good to see them.
Yeah, it was.
You know what? Being around them, I mean, made me feel young again. It felt like no time had passed since seeing
Yeah.
them, you know? It's hard to believe it. I mean, I haven't seen these ladies in 43 years.
Yeah, and they put it in perspective. They've taught some of their students kids. And Leslie mentioned, if I teach a grandkid, I'm done.
I
But that's,
know.
I
I
mean,
know.
that's the longevity in teaching, but also teaching at the same school.
Yeah.
Because today you see, especially in the larger cities, teachers bounce.
Oh yeah, completely. I have a friend who just retired last year. She was an administrator for a long time in Austin and then got married and stepped down to the classroom after many, many years. And every year was just a revolving door of new teachers. Like there was no longevity. And so
Right.
I think it's a better school and a better school district when you have teachers that stick around because you build a culture in that school. You know, just like
Absolutely.
every
Yeah.
city and every state has its own unique microculture, so do schools. And
Yeah.
I think it creates a lot of stability when teachers stick around and they create their own little microculture to that school. It establishes a really strong foundation for students that are coming through.
And
Uh,
I agree with you. I think they should pay the teachers more because a lot of them teachers drop out in the first few years because it's money's not there. I mean, they got to provide for their family, so they go into another profession to make more money. It's like, I know that I would think over 80-90% of them would have loved to stay teaching, but they just couldn't afford it.
well, I mean, I talked about my sister teaching and knowing I'm friends with a lot of her friends who are also teachers, and a lot of people, especially in large cities like Dallas, Houston. I mean, teachers, especially beginning teachers, they have to have a second job to
Yeah,
make ends meet, and it shouldn't be that way. I mean, I'm not, capping on professional sports, but there is an imbalance in our value system when we should pay teachers, police officers,
firemen.
firemen much higher wages. These are our civil servants. These are the people that are impacting future generations, our future leaders, you know, and they should be paid a premium for what they do. It's a
Absolutely, I
very
agree.
important job. It's a very
So
important job. And I know the scope of education and teaching has changed significantly. You and I grew up in an era, and especially in a town where we were taught you respect your teachers, you honor your teachers, you do what your teachers tell you to do, and it's not like that anymore, sadly. And I think that's also one of the things that has discouraged a lot of people from going into education. I mean, there's many school districts in just our state who don't have enough teachers.
I know. Yeah. So, but yeah. Well, I mean, the ones who sticks to it they get the rewards by having their students tell them how they impacted their life. So that's that's their salary right there,
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I, I'm a yoga therapist. I'm a yoga teacher, personal trainer. I'm teaching people every day about their bodies and well-being and health and nutrition, everything. And I always tell people, I have the luckiest job because I get to be a witness to transformation. But when you're a teacher of any kind, you're witnessing growth, transformation, success, and that is a tremendous privilege. And it's the best seat in the house, really and truly. It doesn't feel like
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
to get to see somebody succeed or accomplish something, and that you had some kind of hand in that. It's a source of pride, but more than anything, it's just a real privilege to be a witness to that.
Absolutely. Well, hey, another great episode. And then on to our next one, which I need to text the guys. Let me make sure we don't have one on July 1st. Or do we have one? No. Our next show is a part 2 in July 7th, Angry Red and the Herd 2. So we'll have some new players from the Hartford side and the Plainview side, and there'll be a couple of ones like Steve George and Robert Braddock will be a repeat. But we're going to have Tim Coleman, Dean Takel, um, and then Hartford will have Kerry. I'm sorry, I don't remember some of these guys' names, but Kerry, Raymond Martinez, Alfred Ball. So it's going to be another great show. Hearing the perspective of the 83. I think most of the guys graduated in 83 and 84. What I first heard was class of 82. So can't wait. So anyway, guys, good night, Lisa. Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Peace
Flo.
and love. Peace and love. We'll see you guys again. Good night.